Before I get started here, I just want to give a warning to all the keyboard warriors out there. You may be triggered by this video. Why? Because I'm going to show you something that may be different than what you were taught. I know most of you guys out there are just fine with that, but there are some people who are just not okay with that, especially when it comes to doing chainsaw videos. Chainsaw dogma runs deep. Now with that out of the way, this is going to be a follow-up video to a recent video I did where I showed you how I square file my chains. I also did a short video about the subject, and a couple people, I think it was over on the short, asked me how I file my rakers. Out here we call them stops, but it seems like most people call them rakers. Since mine just happened to need a little bit of attention right now, I thought I'd do a video, show you how I do it. To the keyboard warriors, I have to make this disclaimer. I'm going to show you how I do it. It doesn't mean this is the way to do it or the only way to do it. This is the way I do it. What are stops or rakers? It's this thing right here. The depth of this raker determines how deep this tooth can bite into the wood. By filing these rakers down, it allows the tooth to take a bigger bite. And of course, by leaving them higher, it only allows the tooth to take a smaller bite. The lower the raker is, the bigger bites each tooth can take, and the faster the chain will cut. But only to a point. If it gets too low, it might take a bigger bite than what the saw has enough power to do, which would slow it down. So the key is to get them just right. How do we get them just right? Most people do it by using a raker gauge. I would show you one, but mine are back in the back corner. I'd have to dig them out because I don't use them. I file my rakers freehand. Oh, I can just imagine in the comments. Maybe not over here, but if I do a short video about this, I can imagine hearing about that in the comments. You'll never get them even, your chainsaw's not going to cut smooth, it's going to cut crooked, and on and on and on and on. If the way I do it caused those kind of problems, I would have stopped doing it this way 30 years ago. The way I check the depth is I put a flat edge like a file across the two teeth. I can see how far it goes below. I drop mine down significantly lower than what's recommended. I can't tell you how many hundredths of an inch or what my setting is. I go by how well the saw cuts. The chainsaw manufacturers have their recommendations on how to file the rakers, how deep to file them. But keep in mind, they're selling chainsaws to everybody. People who have different needs, different uses, they have different power heads, different chains. They have to come up with a good all-around number. There's a fly buzzing around in here. I'm going to turn you into a flue. Anyway, if you have more power, you can go down a little lower. I have a good aggressive square ground chain. I can go a little bit lower. I cut a lot of softwoods. I also have experience running a saw. I can get by with dropping my rakers down lower so I can get a faster cut. But keep in mind, the lower they are, the greater the risk of kickback. Don't listen to me, only do what the manufacturer tells you. With that out of the way too, I'm going to show you how I file these. A lot of times I just use my 6-sided files I use for square filing. Just use the flat edge. A flat file actually works better, but I like to use these after they start to get a little bit dull, just to finish them off. I take a piece of wood, hardwood's best, and I put it up here to protect the edge, the sharp edge of this tooth. Instead of filing straight, when you do that it's a little bit choppy, but if you can go at an angle, it helps. I just do the same number of strokes on each tooth. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm doing 5 because right now that's what I think it needs to get it to where I want it to be. And on the last stroke, I twist the file like this to round off the front edge. That rounded edge just reduces drag. I look at the depth, and if that looks right, I just continue with the rest of the teeth with that many strokes. One of the reasons I like going at an angle is when you do the cutters on the side that you're on, it makes a horrible sound unless you go at an angle. Still makes a little bit of a squeak, but much better. Ugh. If you want to avoid that completely, just turn the saw around and do those from the other side. For me, what I like about filing freehand is I can fine tune it to where the saw cuts best. If it seems like the saw is revving too much and I'm not taking advantage of the power it has, I can just take a few swipes, knock them down a little bit, and fine tune it to where the saw cuts just right. Of course, you have to be careful and not go too low because it's hard to put the metal back on after you file it off. And if it sounds like it's starting to rain on a metal roof, that's because it's starting to rain on a metal roof. I thought I had the weather fooled today by being inside today, but it looks like it's trying to fool me by making a bunch of noise. The weather and I have a love-hate relationship with each other. What was I saying? In most cases, just doing it the normal way with a gauge is probably best. But for those of you who might benefit from doing it this way, I hope you can get something useful out of this. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.